first time I saw Marvin after our divorce, I was on my knees in the garden, covered in dirt and sweat, yanking weeds from between the cobblestones of my grandmother's pathway. My pathway now. The sound of his BMW purring past the house made my shoulders tense, but I didn't look up. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. My name is Trinity, and 6 months ago I walked away from an 8-year marriage with nothing but a suitcase full of clothes and my grandmother Harriet's old Victorian house. The same house Marvin had called an ancient money pit when we were married. The same house that became my sanctuary when everything else fell apart. "Girl, you better not be out here working yourself to death again," Addison called from the sidewalk, carrying 2 iced coffees. "It's 90 degrees. I sat back on my heels, wiping sweat from my forehead with my forearm. "The weeds don't care about the heat, neither do I." "Yeah, well, I care about you getting heat stroke." She handed me a coffee and settled onto the porch steps. "Also, heads up, you got mail from the Heritage Society. They're doing that big fundraiser next weekend." I took a long sip of coffee. "Let me guess, they want a donation?" "They want you to come. Apparently being Harriet Shaw's granddaughter makes you local royalty or something." Addison paused, her expression turning serious. "Marvin's name is on the guest list." The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. "Of course it is. He's probably donated a small fortune to make himself look good." "You don't have to go," Addison said quickly. "Nobody would blame you." "I'm going." The words came out harder than I intended. "This is my home now, my community. I'm not hiding from him anymore." Addison nodded slowly. "Want me to come as your +1? I make an excellent human shield." That made me laugh, which was probably her intention. "You're the best friend a divorced disaster could ask for, you know that." Speaking of disasters, Addison pulled out her phone. "Jesse from the law firm called earlier. He wants to review some paperwork about the house. Something about Harriet's will." I frowned. "I thought all that was settled months ago." "Apparently there are some provisions we need to discuss." He didn't give details, but he seemed interested, in a lawyer way. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the garden, Harriet's garden, where she'd taught me about resilience through the metaphor of perennials, how they die back every winter but return stronger in spring, how their roots run deep. "You know what's funny?" I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. "When I left Marvin, he told everyone I was having a breakdown, that I was unstable, irrational. But sitting here, pulling weeds in my grandmother's garden, I've never felt more sane." "That's because you're finally free of his—" A car horn interrupted her. We both turned to see Marvin's BMW making another slow pass by the house. This time I caught a glimpse of a woman in the passenger seat, someone young, perfectly coiffed, wearing oversized sunglasses. "Well," Addison said dryly, "looks like someone's trading up for a newer model." "Good luck to her," I muttered. "She'll need it." Later that evening, after Addison left, I sat on the porch swing Harriet and I used to share. The invitation to the Heritage Society fundraiser lay in my lap, its fancy letterhead gleaming in the twilight. My finger traced over the embossed words, "In honor of our community's legacy." Legacy. What a loaded word. Harriet had left me more than just this house. She'd left me her strength, her wisdom, and apparently some mysterious legal provisions I still needed to understand. Whatever Marvin was planning with his drive-bys and his new girlfriend, I had a feeling my grandmother had seen it coming long before I did. I pulled out my phone and texted Addison, "Set up that meeting with Jesse. Time to find out what else Harriet left behind." The crickets started their evening chorus as I hit send, their chirping a reminder that some things, like karma and consequences, take their own sweet time to arrive. The Heritage Society fundraiser was exactly as pretentious as I expected. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead in the renovated ballroom of the Madison Hotel, while waiters in black ties circulated with champagne and tiny appetizers I couldn't pronounce. "Stop fidgeting with your dress," Addison whispered, grabbing my hand. "You look amazing." I smoothed down the navy blue cocktail dress I'd splurged on. "I feel like everyone's staring at me." "They are," she confirmed cheerfully. "You're the mysterious divorcee who inherited Harriet's house. Of course they're curious." Before I could respond, an elderly woman in pearls approached us. "Trinity, dear, we're so pleased you could make it. Your grandmother was one of our most dedicated supporters." I managed a polite smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. Harriet loved this community." "Such a shame about your situation," she said, lowering her voice. "But you seem to be holding up well, considering." I was saved from responding by a commotion near the entrance. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, and there they were, Marvin and his new girlfriend making their grand entrance. "Holy shit," Addison breathed. "Is that Valentina Shaw, the real estate agent?" It was. Valentina wore a skin-tight red dress that probably cost more than my car, her dark hair styled in perfect waves. She clung to Marvin's arm like a trophy, which I supposed she was. "Trinity!" Marvin's voice boomed across the room. He steered Valentina toward us, his familiar fake smile plastered on his face. "I'm so glad you came. You remember Valentina? From the for sale signs all over town. How could I forget?" I kept my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. Valentina's smile was razor-sharp. "Trinity, darling, that dress is sweet, very small-town chic. Thanks, your dress is very red. Isn't it gorgeous?" Valentina thrust out her left hand, where an enormous diamond caught the light. "Marvin has excellent taste, in jewellery at least." The dig was obvious. I felt Addison tense beside me. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "I hope you're both very happy." "We will be," Valentina purred, "once we sort out this little house situation. You know, Marvin tells me you're being quite difficult about selling." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "The house, darling. Marvin's investment. He put quite a bit of money into renovations during your marriage. It's only fair he gets his share now." Her voice carried, drawing attention from nearby guests. "That house belongs to Trinity," Addison cut in. "It was her grandmother's." "And now it's a community eyesore," Valentina announced loudly. "We have plans to restore it properly, make it a showpiece, but Trinity here is—" She paused dramatically, emotionally attached. The room had gone quiet. I could feel dozens of eyes on us. "The house isn't for sale," I said firmly. "Not now, not ever." Marvin stepped forward, his expression concerned. It was the same look he'd used when telling our friends I was unstable during the divorce. "Trinity, be reasonable. You're living alone in that massive house, barely making ends meet. Valentina and I could offer you a very generous price, enough to start fresh somewhere, more suitable." "More suitable?" My voice cracked. "That house is my home." "It's also partially my investment," Marvin said smoothly. "And frankly, you're being selfish. Valentina and I need the capital for our destination wedding in Bali. You wouldn't want to stand in the way of our happiness, would you?" The room spun slightly. This was classic Marvin, making me look unreasonable while painting himself as the victim. "I think," Addison said loudly, "you should step back and remember whose name is on the deed." "For now," Valentina smirked. "But things change, don't they, darling?" She patted Marvin's chest. "We have excellent lawyers." I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of Harriet's strength. "Yes, things do change. Like how I'm leaving now, and how you both can go to hell." I turned on my heel and walked out, head high, Addison right behind me. As the ballroom doors swung shut, I heard Valentina's voice ring out. "See, totally unstable. No wonder Marvin left." In the parking lot, Addison grabbed my arm. "We need to call Jessie, right now." "Why?" "Because what just happened in there? That wasn't just drama, that was a threat, and I think your grandmother might have seen it coming." Jessie's office smelled like old books and coffee. He sat behind his massive oak desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, reviewing what looked like ancient legal documents. "Your grandmother," he said finally, "was a brilliant woman." "I know that," I replied, fighting the urge to peek at the papers. "But what does that have to do with Marvin?" Jesse removed his glasses. "Harriet came to see me about 2 years before she passed. She said something that stuck with me. That snake my granddaughter married will try to steal her shell when she's most vulnerable." Addison, who'd been unusually quiet, leaned forward. And she put a clause in her will. A very specific, very clever clause." Jesse pulled out a highlighted document. "If Marvin attempts to manipulate or coerce Trinity into selling the property after their divorce, especially for personal financial gain, it triggers a complete reassessment of their divorce settlement." My mouth went dry. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," Jesse said, smiling slightly, "that if we can prove Marvin and his new fiancée were attempting to pressure you into selling the house for their benefit, say, for an expensive destination wedding, we can reopen the entire divorce case, including any assets he might have forgotten to disclose." Addison grabbed my arm. "Trinity, remember how he always said his business was struggling, but somehow managed to buy that BMW right after the divorce? The Heritage Society event," Jesse continued, "was recorded. They always film their fundraisers for promotional purposes. If Marvin and Valentina's public confrontation is on tape—" "It is," a new voice said. We turned to see Jesse's assistant standing in the doorway with a USB drive. "I just picked up the footage. They got everything." Jesse plugged in the drive and turned his monitor so we could all see. There we were, the whole ugly scene in high definition. Valentina's smirk, Marvin's fake concern, their joint attempt to humiliate me into submission. "This is textbook coercion," Jesse said, pausing the video, "combined with their implied legal threats. It's exactly what Harriet's clause was designed to prevent." "But why?" I whispered. "Why would she go to all this trouble?" "Because she knew him better than you did," Addison said softly. "She saw what he was capable of." Jesse pulled out another document. "There's more. If the clause is triggered, we can subpoena all of Marvin's financial records from the past 10 years. Bank statements, investment accounts, everything." "He won't like that," I said. "No," Jesse agreed. "He won't. Especially since my preliminary investigation suggests he significantly undervalued his assets during your divorce proceedings. If that's proven true, he could be liable for fraud." My head was spinning. "So what do we do?" "First," Jesse said, "we document everything. Every interaction, every threat, every attempt to pressure you about the house. Second, we prepare for them to play dirty. They will." "They already tried at the fundraiser," Addison pointed out. "That was just the opening act," Jesse warned. "Once they realise what's at stake, it'll get worse." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Marvin. "We need to talk, privately, about the house." I showed it to Jesse, who nodded. "Perfect. Let's set up a meeting. Here, in my office. We'll record everything." "Won't he suspect something?" "He's too arrogant to worry," Addison said. "Trust me, I've seen enough guys like him at the firm. They always think they're the smartest person in the room." I thought about Harriet, how she'd seen this coming years ago, how she'd built this legal fortress around me while I was still blind to what Marvin really was. "Set up the meeting," I told Jesse, "but I have one condition." "What's that?" "I want Valentina there too. Let's see how united they are when everything starts falling apart." Jesse's smile was wolfish. "I'll have the paperwork ready. And Trinity, your grandmother would be proud. She always said you had steel in your spine. You just needed a reason to find it." I texted Marvin back. "Fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Bring Valentina. Let's discuss your investment." Addison squeezed my hand. "Ready to watch them self-destruct?" For the first time since the fundraiser, I felt myself smile. More than ready. It's time they learned what happens when you underestimate a woman's inheritance. Look at this, Addison said, spreading papers across my kitchen table. Credit card statements from 2019. Marvin spent $12,000 at a jewelry store in December. But in the divorce filing, he claimed he had no luxury purchases that year. I was elbow deep in old bank statements. That must have been right before he started telling me we needed to tighten our belts and sold my car. Your car that he convinced you to put in his name? Addison made a note in her legal pad. The same car he kept after the divorce? The very same. I picked up another document. Hey, what's this account number? I've never seen it before. Addison grabbed her laptop. Let me cross-reference. Holy shit, Trinity, that's an offshore account. In the Cayman Islands, opened 3 years ago with an initial deposit of $200,000. My coffee cup clattered against its saucer. 200,000, we were fighting about grocery bills and he had that kind of money hidden away? Classic financial abuse pattern, Jessie said, walking into the kitchen with more files. He kept you focused on small expenses while moving the big money around behind your back. There's more, Addison announced, typing furiously. 3 rental properties purchased in cash under his mother's name, a boat, and, interesting, a down payment on a beach house made 2 weeks before he filed for divorce. I felt sick, all while he was telling the court he could barely afford alimony. The best part? Jessie pulled out a fresh document. Every single one of these hidden assets was purchased with marital funds, money that should have been split during the divorce. And now, thanks to your grandmother's clause, we can get it all reopened, Jessie confirmed, plus penalties for fraud. My phone buzzed. Another text from Marvin. About tomorrow's meeting, Valentina has some excellent ideas for the house, very profitable for everyone. Profitable for them, he means, Addison snorted. They probably already have contractors lined up. Look at this, Jessie said suddenly, holding up an old photo. Your grandmother kept records too. This is from your wedding day. The photo showed Marvin talking to Harriet. His smile was warm, charming, the same smile he'd used at the fundraiser. But Harriet's expression was different. Watchful, wary. She knew, I whispered. Even then, she knew what he was. She did more than know, Jessie said. She documented everything, every time Marvin mentioned the house, every joke about selling it, every comment about its value. She kept a journal. Addison whistled. Your grandmother was running a whole surveillance operation. She was protecting me, I realised, even when I couldn't protect myself. A car door slammed outside. We rushed to the window to see Valentina getting out of her red convertible, phone pressed to her ear. I don't care what it takes, we heard her say as she paced the sidewalk. That house is perfect for the wedding photos. Just make sure she signs. No, Marvin hasn't told her about the developers yet. Yes, they're offering triple market value. Jessie was already recording on his phone. Well, looks like someone's showing their cards early. Developers? I turned to him. What developers? I'd bet anything they already have a deal lined up, Addison said. Probably planning to flip the property as soon as they force you out. Valentina got back in her car and drove off, but the damage was done. We had another piece of evidence for tomorrow's meeting. You know what this means? Jessie gathered up the files. When we present all this tomorrow, they're not just facing fraud charges for the hidden assets. They're looking at conspiracy to commit real estate fraud too. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time, I felt powerful. How much trouble are they in, exactly? Jessie's smile was grim. Let's just say Valentina might want to return that engagement ring. They're going to need the money for legal fees. Tomorrow's going to be interesting, Addison said, squeezing my shoulder. I picked up the wedding photo, looking at Harriet's knowing expression. You know what the worst part is? If they'd just left me alone, left the house alone, none of this would have come out. Karma, Addison said softly. It's a patient hunter. I touched the photograph one last time before sliding it into Jessie's evidence file. Well, tomorrow Karma's hunting season officially begins. Marvin and Valentina arrived at Jessie's office exactly 7 minutes late. Just enough to make a point, but not enough to seem rude. I watched them settle into the leather chairs across from Jessie's desk, Valentina smoothing her designer skirt while Marvin adjusted his tie. "Thank you for meeting with us," Marvin began, his voice dripping with fake sincerity. "I think we got off on the wrong foot at the fundraiser." "Did we?" I kept my voice neutral. Addison sat beside me, quietly taking notes. "Trinity, darling," Valentina leaned forward, "we have an amazing opportunity here. The developers we're working with—" "Developers?" Jessie interrupted mildly. "I thought this was about Marvin's personal investment in the property." Valentina's perfect smile faltered for a moment. "Well, yes, but what Valentina means," Marvin cut in smoothly, "is that we have connections who could make this very profitable for everyone. Trinity, you could walk away with enough money to start fresh somewhere new. Isn't that what you want?" "What I want," I said carefully, "is for you to stop trying to manipulate me out of my grandmother's house." "Manipulate?" Valentina laughed. "We're trying to help you. That house is dragging you down. You can barely afford the maintenance." "My finances aren't your concern," I replied. "Actually," Marvin's voice hardened, "they are. I invested considerable money into that property during our marriage. Money I can prove came from my personal accounts." Jessie cleared his throat. "Which personal accounts would those be, Marvin? The ones you disclosed during the divorce, or the ones in the Cayman Islands?" The colour drained from Marvin's face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No." Jessie opened a file. "What about the 3 rental properties under your mother's name? The beach house, the boat?" Valentina's head snapped toward Marvin. "What boat?" "This is ridiculous." Marvin stood up. "We came here to discuss the house, not to be accused of—" "Fraud," Addison supplied helpfully, "because that's what hiding assets during a divorce is called." "You can't prove anything," Marvin snarled, but his hands were shaking. "Actually," Jessie said, "we can, thanks to a very specific clause in Harriet's will. The moment you tried to pressure Trinity into selling, you triggered a complete review of all your financial dealings." Valentina stood up so fast her chair tipped over. "This is absurd. We're getting married in 3 months. The developers are ready to break ground as soon as we close on the property. We have plans." "Had plans," I corrected quietly. "Past tense." "You vindictive bitch," she hissed. "This is all because you're jealous. Because Marvin chose me." "Valentina," Marvin warned, but it was too late. "No, I won't let her ruin everything. We need that money for our wedding. The deposits are non-refundable." Jessie pressed a button on his desk phone. "Did you get all that, Carol?" "Every word," his assistant's voice replied. "Recording saved and time-stamped." Marvin's face went from white to red. "You recorded us. That's illegal." "Not in this state," Addison said cheerfully. "Not when there's reasonable suspicion of criminal activity." "Which there is," Jessie added, "given the evidence of hidden assets and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud." Valentina grabbed her purse. "This is insane! Marvin, tell them this is insane!" But Marvin was staring at the files on Jessie's desk, recognition dawning in his eyes. "Harriet," he whispered, "she planned this, all of it." "She did," I confirmed. "She saw right through you, even at our wedding. And she made sure that when you eventually showed your true colours, I'd be protected." "You can't do this to me," he said, but his voice had lost its authority. "I'll fight it." "With what money?" Jessie asked pleasantly. "Your accounts will be frozen by morning. Standard procedure in fraud cases." Valentina's perfect composure cracked. "Frozen, but the wedding vendors, the deposits. Marvin, do something." I stood up, gathering my purse. "I think we're done here. Jessie will be in touch with your lawyer. Oh, and Valentina, I'd hold off on those wedding invitations if I were you." As I walked out, I heard Valentina's voice rise to a shriek. You told me you had the money. You promised me barley. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe freely. Harriet had given me more than just a house. She'd given me back my power. The knock on my front door came just as I was finishing my morning coffee. When I opened it, I found myself face to face with a woman I hadn't seen in 5 years. Peyton, I blinked, hardly believing my eyes. My cousin looked different, her once wild curls now elegantly styled, her backpacker clothes replaced with a sleek business suit. "Hey, stranger," she said softly. "Heard you've been stirring up trouble." "How did you—" "Small town, remember? Plus, Aunt Harriet's lawyer called me. Said I might want to come home for what's about to happen in court." I stepped aside to let her in. She walked straight to the kitchen, exactly where it had always been, and settled into her old spot at the table like she'd never left. "Nice to see some things don't change," she said, looking around, "though I hear a lot has." "That's an understatement." I poured her a coffee. She still took it black, I noticed. "Where have you been?" "Everywhere. London, Tokyo, Sydney, working as a financial investigator, actually," she smiled. "Which is why Jessie called me." I sat down hard. "What?" "Trinity, I've spent the last 5 years tracking down hidden money for major corporations. Jessie thinks I might be able to help find whatever else Marvin's hiding." The front door opened again, Addison using her spare key. She stopped short when she saw Peyton. "Well, look what the karma cat dragged in," she said, but she was smiling. "Addison," Peyton nodded. "Still keeping my cousin out of trouble?" "More like helping her cause the right kind of trouble." Addison dropped a thick folder on the table. "Speaking of which, you'll never guess what I found in the county records." "Let me," Peyton interrupted, pulling out her laptop. 3 years ago, Marvin registered a consulting company in Panama. Classic tax haven setup. I'm betting if we follow that trail, we'll find where the money went during the divorce," Addison finished. "Trinity, your ex-husband isn't just a liar, he's an idiot. He used the same password for everything." "How do you know his password?" Peyton laughed. "Let me guess, your wedding date?" "With an exclamation point," Addison confirmed. "Like I said, idiot." My phone buzzed. A text from Valentina. "We need to talk, woman to woman, about Marvin." I showed it to the others. "Trouble in paradise." Peyton raised an eyebrow. "She's probably figured out she's engaged to a fraud," Addison said, "both literally and figuratively." "There's something else," Peyton said quietly. "Something you should know, Trinity. About Marvin." The tone in her voice made me look up. "What?" "Remember when I left town, right after your wedding?" She took a deep breath. "Marvin came on to me at your reception. Said if I ever wanted to have some fun while he was in town on business." The coffee cup in my hand cracked. Hot liquid spilled across the table, but I barely noticed. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me then?" Peyton asked gently. "You were so in love, and he was so good at playing the devoted husband. I couldn't be the one to shatter that, so I left." Addison was already cleaning up the spilled coffee. "Well, that's another nail in his coffin. We can add attempted infidelity to the court records." "No," I said firmly. "We keep that private. This isn't about humiliating him. It's about justice." "Speaking of justice," Peyton opened another window on her laptop. "I think I just found something interesting. A series of wire transfers to an account in Singapore, all made right before he filed for divorce." "How much?" Addison leaned over her shoulder. "Enough to buy a very nice house or fund a very expensive wedding in Bali." My phone buzzed again, Jessie this time. "Court date set for next week. Be ready." Peyton reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "I'm sorry I wasn't here before, but I'm here now." "We all are," Addison added, "and we're going to bury him." I looked at these two women, my best friend and my cousin, both fighting in my corner. Maybe that's what Harriet had known all along, that sometimes the family you choose is as powerful as the family you're born into. "Next week," I said, squeezing Peyton's hand. "Everything changes." "No," she corrected. Next week, everything gets set right. The courtroom was packed. Apparently, news of Marvin's financial shenanigans had spread through town like wildfire. I sat between Jessie and Addison, with Peyton directly behind us, while Marvin and his lawyer occupied the other table. Valentina was nowhere to be seen. "All rise," the bailiff called as Judge Martinez entered. "Quite the turnout for a civil case," the judge remarked, scanning the room. "Let's begin with the plaintiff's evidence regarding the triggered clause in Harriet Shaw's will." Jessie stood. "Your Honour, we have documentation proving Mr. Marvin's attempts to coerce my client into selling her inherited property, including video evidence from the Heritage Society event. The footage played on the courtroom screens. Watching Marvin and Valentina's performance again made my stomach turn, but the judge's expression remained neutral. "Furthermore," Jessie continued, "this attempted coercion led to the activation of Mrs. Shaw's bad partner clause, allowing us to investigate Mr. Marvin's financial dealings during and after his marriage to my client." Marvin's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! This clause is unprecedented and possibly illegal." "Overruled," Judge Martinez said. "I've reviewed the will. The clause is both legal and binding. Continue, Counselor." Jessie nodded to Peyton, who approached with her findings. "Your Honour, we've uncovered extensive evidence of financial fraud during the divorce proceedings, multiple hidden accounts, undisclosed properties, and systematic attempts to conceal assets." Marvin's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. His lawyer whispered something urgently in his ear, but he shook his head. "The court calls Peyton Wilson," Jessie announced. Peyton took the stand, her expertise lending weight to every word as she detailed the money trail. Panama accounts, Singapore transfers, property bought under his mother's name. "And how much would you estimate was hidden during the divorce proceedings?" Jessie asked. "Approximately $2.7 million, Peyton stated clearly. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Marvin stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. That woman is Trinity's cousin. She's clearly biased." "Sit down, Mr. Marvin," Judge Martinez warned, "or I'll have you removed." The doors burst open. Valentina strode in, wearing a significantly less expensive outfit than usual. "Your Honour," she announced, "I have evidence to submit." Marvin's face went from purple to ash white. "Valentina, don't—" "Emails," she continued, holding up her phone, "between Marvin and the developers, proving he planned to flip Trinity's house for a profit of over $5 million. He promised me half if I helped pressure her into selling." "Approach the bench," the judge ordered. While Valentina handed over her phone, I noticed something missing from her left hand, the enormous engagement ring. "Given this new evidence," Judge Martinez said, after reviewing the emails, "and the extensive financial fraud already documented, I'm prepared to make my ruling." The room fell silent. "Mr. Marvin, your attempts to hide assets during your divorce proceedings constitute serious fraud. Your subsequent attempts to manipulate your ex-wife into selling her inherited property, combined with evidence of conspiracy to commit real estate fraud, leave me no choice." She turned to Jessie. "The bad partner clause is hereby activated in full. All previously hidden assets are to be disclosed and divided according to marital property laws, with punitive damages awarded to the plaintiff. Furthermore, Mr. Marvin will pay all legal fees and face potential criminal charges for fraud." Marvin jumped up again. "You can't do this. I'll appeal." "Additionally," the judge continued, raising her voice, "a restraining order is granted, preventing you from coming within 500 feet of Miss Trinity or her property. Do you understand?" "This is all your fault." Marvin turned to me, his face contorted. "You and your interfering grandmother. Remove him," Judge Martinez ordered. The bailiff stepped forward. As Marvin was led out, still shouting, Valentina approached our table. "I should have listened to the rumours about him," she said quietly. "Good luck with everything." She walked out, head high, leaving behind the faint scent of expensive perfume and shattered dreams. "Court is adjourned," Judge Martinez announced. In the sudden quiet, Addison squeezed my hand. "It's over." Not quite, Jessie said, smiling. Now comes the fun part, collecting what he owes you. And Trinity, it's going to be a very substantial amount. I looked around at my support team, Jessie's quiet confidence, Addison's fierce loyalty, Peyton's protective presence, and somewhere I felt Harriet's spirit too, watching over it all. Let's go home, I said. I think this calls for champagne on the porch. The autumn breeze carried the scent of fresh paint and newly planted mums as I rocked on the porch swing, sipping tea from Harriet's favourite cup. The house had never looked better, not just restored, but renewed. "Special delivery," Addison called, climbing the porch steps with a thick envelope. "Fresh from Jessie's office, final accounting of Marvin's hidden assets. Hit me with the damage report." She settled beside me, pulling out documents. "Let's see. The beach house sold for $1.2 million. The rental properties netted another $800K. Offshore accounts recovered. Holy shit! What? Total recovery comes to just over $4 million. She grinned. Plus, interest. I nearly dropped my teacup. "That's karma," Peyton said, appearing at the garden gate with a box of fresh pastries. "Sweet, expensive karma." She joined us on the porch, distributing danishes. "Also, you'll never guess who I saw at the grocery store." "Valentina," Addison guessed. "I heard she's selling real estate in the next county now." "Nope, Marvin's mother. She actually smiled at me. Can you believe it? Apparently she's furious with him for lying to her about those properties he put in her name. She could have been in legal trouble too." The screen door creaked. We really needed to oil that, and Jessie stepped out. "Ladies," he said, holding up a sealed envelope. This was in Harriet's personal effects. Instructions said to deliver it to Trinity after everything was settled. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter, written in Harriet's elegant script. "My dearest Trinity, if you're reading this, then the snake has finally shown his true colours, and you've found your strength. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it, but I'm not sorry for setting this trap. Some men need to learn that karma isn't just a spiritual concept. Sometimes it comes with legal teeth. The money you've recovered isn't just compensation, it's freedom. Use it wisely. The house is your foundation, but your life is yours to build. All my love, Harriet P.S. Check behind the loose brick in the garden wall. I left something there for when you were ready." I was running before I finished reading. The others followed as I reached the old garden wall, finding the loose brick exactly where I remembered it from childhood. Behind it was a small metal box. Inside was a key and another note. "For the antique shop on Main Street. I bought it years ago. The deed is in Jessie's office. Every strong woman needs her own kingdom to rule." "Did you know about this?" I asked Jessie. He smiled. "Harriet made me promise not to tell until you'd handled Marvin on your own. She said, and I quote, 'Let her find her fire first.'" "So, what are you going to do?" Addison asked. "With the shop? With everything?" I looked at my grandmother's house, my house, standing proud against the autumn sky, at the garden where I'd learned to grow things, at these people who'd helped me grow too. "First," I said, "I'm hiring you full-time, Peyton. The shop needs a financial manager who can spot a snake from a mile away." Peyton's eyes widened. "You mean it?" "And Addison, Jessie mentioned you passed the bar exam. How do you feel about starting your own practice? The shop has an empty office space upstairs." "Are you serious?" Addison squealed. "Trinity, that's perfect." "What about Marvin?" Peyton asked quietly. "I heard he's still in town." "Let him stay," I said. "Let him watch me succeed. That's the best revenge of all." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Marvin, can we talk, please, about everything?" I deleted it without responding. Some conversations weren't worth having anymore. "You know what?" I said, pocketing the shop key. "I think Harriet would love what we're about to do with her final gift." "Which is?" Jessie asked. "Create something beautiful, something strong." I smiled. "Something entirely our own. The autumn wind picked up, scattering leaves across the porch. Somewhere in that breeze I could have sworn I heard Harriet laughing, the satisfied chuckle of a woman whose plans had come together perfectly. I raised my teacup. To Karma, they echoed, and to Harriet. The future stretched out before me, not like a blank page, but like a garden waiting to bloom. And this time I knew exactly what I wanted to grow,